Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Surah Al-Baqarah, Chapter 2, and we will cover verses 204 to 210. Enter into Islam in totality. I've taken this title from one verse, I think it is 208. These are the references and some of the meanings, as I've mentioned previously as well, these are taken from the meanings of the Quran, Volume 3. This is our contact. First slide is recap of verses 196 to 203, which we covered on 5th of July, 2026. After outlining some salient guidelines on fighting in the path of Allah, the Quran has provided guidance on the conduct of Hajj and Umrah under the program of Deen as an Islamic system. After Deen is established in a land and it has navigated its initial period of transition successfully, the Quran has presented guidelines for a program for a collective gathering from across the world in order to resolve issues faced by the Muslim Ummah and, of course, mankind. Because this Ummah emerges out of mankind of that era. It describes some of the existing constituents of performing Hajj and mentions these in various verses. The delegates, including those observers from general mankind coming from various parts of the earth, need to utilize their time and activities under the leadership of the Jamaat-e-Momineen. And this is about the Hajj gathering once the system of Deen has been fully established. This needs to include mutual introduction, issues facing mankind in that era, and their optimum resolution under the guidance of the Quranic constitution. Commercial activities to promote commerce, planning for the future, and we can say as AI is becoming widespread, so that will also be included, etc. Mankind will be apprised of the benefits of the system of Deen in all its aspects, that is physical as well as psychological. So what should come to our mind when we think of Deen, we should think of both physical as well as human psyche, because that is what we are comprised of. Coming to agreements on short-term and long-term future plans through discussions among experts in various well-organized sessions, and then sending off all delegates in a spirit of brotherhood. So we can imagine that under the system of Deen, the life is extremely dynamic, but also enjoyable, not boring or frustrating or without an aim. Using this gathering to revisit the salient aspects of the Quranic value system. Outline of today's presentation, that is verses 204 to 210. After providing the guidelines for the program of Hajj, once the system of Deen has gained strength in some land on Allah's earth, the Quran provides further guidance on the kind of human psyche with which the Jamaat-e-Momineen needs to remain fully alive. It is not words which need to be believed and trusted, it is people's actions which need to be observed and monitored over a period of time. So there has to be a transparent system of intelligence where human beings should know that they are being observed by others. And those who are observing others, they themselves need to be observed through the Quranic guidance. Since human beings can conceal their true intentions, thus here Allah provides some signs of such devious people in order to protect the system of Deen. If you remember, Quran has very clearly said that there are only two kinds of people, broadly speaking. One are those who do kufr, and the other ones are those who display iman. As already noted, by becoming Mu'min and then a Jamaat-e-Momineen, we come to terms with the acquisition of the new life within us, which is being tried and tested by using the signs of the Quran 24/7. We should evaluate everyone else using this criteria of self-development over a period of time and be very firm in bidding farewell to anyone who may try to gain access to the Jamaat, bearing in mind that it is not about numbers, it is the law of requital which matters. Because these people who are actually hypocrites but pose as Mu'mineen, They cause horrendous harm to any organization in which they find strength and become established for some reason. Having reached the stage of going through a number of salient constituents of the system of deen, Allah asked the Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu udkhulu fis-silmi ka'affatan. Enter into Islam fully, that is, be 100% committed to the cause of Allah. And this 100% commitment is only possible with the precise acceptance of that Iman which is noted in the Quran, and then it should manifest itself as Amal-e-Saleh. Let us go to the first verse of today's presentation, verse 204. Be fully aware of people who intend harm. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يُعْجِبُكَ قَوْلُهُ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَيُشْهِدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا فِي قَلْبِهِ وَهُوَ أَلَدُّ الْخِصَامِ. Remember, you will come across two kinds of people in the world. One are those for whom only the benefits of worldly life, that is, physical side of our existence, exist. The second kind will be described in verse 207 later on. When these people will converse about worldly affairs, they will mesmerize you. In order to prove themselves to be truthful, they will declare Allah as being a witness at every step. They will take an oath on every word they utter, even though their hearts will be saturated with feelings of enmity and strife. Even within man-made system, we will see there are a lot of people who try to say things which may not be in their heart. For example, if we go and buy some car, the salesman will try every trick in his trade through his words to lure you in. Commonplace translation of this verse: there is the type of man whose speech about this world's life may dazzle you, and he calls Allah to witness about what is in his heart, yet is he the most contentious of enemies. So Quran is guiding us over here that do not accept people on what they say. See how they behave, and obviously for that you need to give them some time and also give them some tasks to support what they say. Verse 205, be aware of those who create fasad on Allah's earth, and this is very much evident in the word of 2026. And we know fasad means creating conflicts, chaos, disorder, and every kind of negative aspect in the collective life of human beings. Marzaat of Allah sa'a fil ardi li yufsida fiha wa yuhlikal harsa wa nasla wallahu la yuhibbul fasad. When these people acquire government and authority, then their whole effort will be directed to making destruction and ruin commonplace in the land. Crops to become destroyed, the human race to become annihilated. That there should remain neither any balance in the economic system nor in the communal system. They only care for their own self-interest, and plenty of these examples in modern day politics in every nation. They have absolutely no concern about what is going on in the land, even though that Allah whom they present as a witness at every utterance of theirs, He never approves of destruction and devastation being spread about in the world. So we need the Quran's criteria to recognize these people. Commonplace translation of this verse: when he turns his back, his aim everywhere is to spread mischief through the earth and destroy crops and cattle. But Allah loves not mischief. So we can see that translation is not doing justice to this verse. This meaning gives it a bit better elucidation. We go to the next slide. These verses should be viewed against the backdrop of the system of deen which is now established in the land. So we should keep in mind that these two verses appeared or were revealed at the time when the system of deen was established. So over here we should look at these verses with that context in our mind. These people were trying to show themselves as firm and true Muslims and taking an oath in Allah on every speech of theirs. Why do they do this? It is merely to entice people to hand over the keys of power into their hands. Very important that particularly that Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen which is going to establish the system of deen, they should never let anyone get into their rank and file. And if there is any suspicion, then such a person should be suspended and then observed. They provide assurance to people that if power falls into their hands, they will work for the welfare of the general public. They will carry out service in Islam. By deceiving people, they get their own self-interest served. We see the display of this modus operandi all around the world in all versions of man-made systems. Here the Quran puts before us the potent signs of these non-Quranic intellects who may declare from their tongues that they have become Muslims. And Quran says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. And imagine this verse is addressed to mu'mineen, that do not say those things which you are not going to do. So what can be the state of those who haven't come to the Quran? So all these people should be seen with a lot of suspicion. The Quran has mentioned some of those signs here, and the Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen needs to remain cognizant of all these signs and look for these when monitoring the behavior of the people joining their ranks. This is the reason that education and training in human psychology will be a part of this path of self-development. And when we say that education and training in human psychology, we have to look at it from both the psychology within the man-made system and also the psychology about human beings put forward by the Quran. We have also seen through these sessions that the Quran deals with all facets of human behavior and its link with the human psyche. And Quran has adequately warned us if we keep our eyes, ears, and mind open and listen to the Quran. Next verse, 206, when others remind these people about their incompatible behavior, their reaction is, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُ اتَّقِ اللَّهَ أَخَذَتْهُ الْعِزَّةُ بِالْإِثْمِ فَحَسْبُهُ جَهَنَّمُ وَلَا بِئْسَ الْمِهَادُ. When it is said to these people to obey the laws of Allah, then the thought of intoxicating power and false pride provokes them to create further chaos. Their abode is a hell of ruin and destruction where humanity becomes slaughtered. How evil is that abode? And we see plenty of these examples in today's world, even under the human system. Commonplace translation, when it is said to him, fear Allah, he is led by arrogance to more crime. Enough for him is hell, an evil bed indeed to lie on. This translation creates some kind of satisfying thought of revenge that this man will get punished in the hereafter. And it appears that it is Allah who needs to do something. Whereas from the earlier meaning, there is an action put forward for the Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen to come to terms with the psyche of the man-made systems in the world. So man-made systems should be studied very closely in terms of human psychology. Next slide is, society needs to be balanced in all aspects. After becoming annoyed with the ill conduct of these people, others reminded them about the laws of Allah, that is, displaying taqwa. That is, these mu'mineen tell them that why do you do these wrong things? You should accept Iman the way the Quran has put forward. And if you don't like it, then clearly say so. This means that those who have accepted Iman and are on the path of Allah, they are now carrying out their duty of Ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhauna anil munkar, enjoining what is right, forbidding what is wrong. And this we should do essentially within the circle in which we operate, for example, our immediate family, biological family, and of course, friends and other relations around us, and try to discuss these things to gauge their understanding and their interest. In this verse, the Quran has eloquently depicted the psychology of the elite in power who are tyrannical, coercive, rebellious, and consider themselves to be above the constitution and law. In the minds of these people, there is no thought of any other plan except to acquire power. And we should keep in mind this acquisition of power is a human proclivity. People want to have some kind of a power. And this power, that is why Quran says Aziz and Hakim, that this power should be utilized within the permanent values of the Quran. And if we do not use those permanent values as guiding principles, then we will see the state of world will be the way it is today. When it is said to them that the nation is becoming ruined due to corruption and injustices, we see plenty of these examples that they are more willing to spend money on war rather than on civil structures and for the good of people. The thought which passes through their minds is that some deficiency remains in the use of power. That is why these imbalances are appearing. And this is something very interesting about the human psyche, that once they get used to using the power abusively and wrongly and in an evil way, they want to use more power to eradicate the problems which are created by their unjust power in the past. For the rectification of this state of affairs, they resort to more tyranny, they employ more power. So, see how this verse is guiding us towards the system of deen and saying that don't be deceived by the man made system as people. Don't go with their words, don't become satisfied with what they say. Stick to your guns and stick to Sirat al-Mustaqim, this path which is put forward by Allah. The consequence is that corruption keeps multiplying until such time that they fall into the hell of destruction and ruin together with their nation. They become destroyed as well as their nation. And we can see that transitionary phase through which some of the nations which are extremely powerful are going through. Next slide is some further elaboration. This is why the Quran has warned the people of a nation that if corruption is becoming a commonplace in the land, then do not sit idly by, saying that we are not responsible for these balances. Remember, when the destruction appears, only those will not become destroyed who are responsible for these injustices. So a great lesson for all of us on this platform, that we should not sit idle and just watch them and saying, what can we do? But we can do a lot in terms of self-development and staying together using the Quranic value system. The Quran has warned us not to remain suffering from this self-deception, as noted, for example, in this verse, وَاتَّقُوا فِتْنَةَ اللَّهِ تُصِيبَنَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْكُمْ خَاصَّةً وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. Make arrangements to protect yourselves from that destruction collectively, because when it arrives, then it does not remain confined to only those people who are responsible for these upheavals. These overwhelm the whole of the society. So keeping an eye on that is extremely important, that what is going on around us and of course in the world as well. Know that Allah's law of requital is severe in pursuing the criminals. So when people follow the wrong path, the results will always be wrong. In this verse, it is also stated that أَخَذَتْهُ الْإِزَّةُ بِالْإِثْمِ. The tyrannical and coercive powers and officials create evils in the society which leads to weakening it. They do not rectify this situation through reformation, instead use more power. Because power makes people mad. It has an intoxicating effect. And because they are not Hakim, they do not have access to permanent values. And even if they know about the Quran, they are not going to come to the Quran, because once we start doing wrong to a lot of people around us, then our intellectual proclivity becomes such that we are going to do more of it. The consequence of which is that more weaknesses and vulnerabilities are created in the society. And the Quran is saying over here that you have a choice. Through the Quran, we have given you the choice that all these things can be rectified if you come to the Quran and follow its path, and then you will exactly know what is going on in the man-made system and how the deen can emerge out of even the worst of systems. The meanings of itham have been covered under verse 285, which means such actions which produce weakness in a human being, due to which human energies become diminished, which leads to anxiety and exhaustion. And this is because of their own thoughts and their own deeds. Because everything they do, that leaves an impact on their own self. And when they do injustice, that leaves a mark. And as they proceed further and doing more justices and do not stop and take the right path, then the thing becomes cancerous. We go to the next verse, 207, coming into line with the values of the Quran. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ رَءُوفٌ بِالْعِبَادِ. The other kind is of those people who dedicate themselves to fulfilling the divine aim, And even if they have to lay down their life for that, they sacrifice it willingly. These are those people who achieve every kind of security and means of nourishment according to the law of Allah. So Quran over here, after going through those people who create fasad in the world, now has come to mu'mineen who have come to this path and emerged out of the man-made system. And it is a tremendous change and transformation in the human psyche which takes place with those people who decide that this system is not for us and we will like to go to the system put forward by the Quran. So that means they should become aware of an alternative system to the man-made system, and they use their choice willingly and deliberately. Commonplace translation of this verse is, and there is the type of man who gives his life to earn the pleasure of Allah, and Allah is full of kindness to his devotees. Very much related to the worship aspect, that is somehow to please Allah, and this is going on under the religious domain. And that is why people who are following this kind of religion can never ever come to the Quran. They will have to give up those religious beliefs first. Here too, there is a tinge of religiosity, finding some way to please Allah through tasbih and worship. And we now know from the Quran that Allah cannot be pleased or annoyed. He follows his own laws, and he asks us to follow these laws after finding out what these laws are. The translations of these verses are individual-centered, whereas from the previous continuation, the addressee is the Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, and the context in which the issue is being described is the system of deen. I put down these comments so that we can compare and contrast these commonplace translations, and then knowing the meanings, we can then interpret these in the context of the system of deen. And we will achieve that kind of expertise that we can go through any translation of the Quran in the world and still be able to draw the correct meanings. Next slide is, under the system of deen, we enter into a contract. Under the system of deen, there is a covenant agreed between Mu'mineen and Allah, according to which man sells his life and possessions in the hand of Allah, and in its return, Allah bestows Jannat on them. And we see it under the man-made system. People who are particularly officials, they take some kind of an oath in every land and every nation. And over here, Quran says that you should make a contract. Once you come to the Quran, then you are essentially come to someone who owns everything. Earth is his, universe is his. So this is the best way to come to the Quran and make a commitment, and then see how this commitment develops in the future by following this path. In the verse under view, the word shara is mentioned, the meaning of which is both buying and selling. And Quran has said, Inna Allah ashtara minal mu'minina anfusahum wa amwalahum bi anna lahumul jannata. In this verse, the term man yashri nafsahu is used, appears, i.e. the individual who sells his own self. And in this 111 verse, Quran says that Allah has purchased the life and possessions of mu'mineen, those mu'mineen who have accepted this covenant, and for their work on this path, they will get Jannah for their efforts, for their striving. And the whole thing is applicable to this life, particularly because our next life is predicated on what we do over here. Here Allah has highlighted the state of the commitment of someone who has accepted Iman and is fully committed to this path of Allah as defined by the Quran. The Quran asks us to take our life seriously, and as noted in verse 177, which we have gone through in detail, to enter into agreements and contracts consciously and with free volition. So this contract which we enter through the Quran with Allah is a serious one, and it is a tangible one. It may not be visible, but human self is an entity which we know exists, because we know that we exist. We have a strong sense of identity, and we know that when we make commitments to others as well within the man-made system, what these commitments mean. As our choices in this life affect the development of ourselves, hence we need to pause and reflect here. There is a lot of thinking required when we go through these verses and these slides, so that we strengthen our commitment on this path. The next term in the verse is Marzaat of Allah, which is commonly translated to earn the pleasure of Allah. This leads to wrong beliefs of worshipping Allah to seek His pleasure, or on the other side, Allah becomes angry due to such and such acts, which is not true. Allah doesn't feel happy or annoyed. There is the question of following His laws. Due to such phrases or words, a very wrong concept about Allah becomes created. Happiness and annoyance, etc., are human emotions, and the being of Allah is free from these kinds of emotions. And it's important that we acquire that pristine belief or conviction about the concept of Allah which is given in the Quran in order to get benefit out of it. If we leave it bit vague and confused and not very clear about it, then our self will not develop on those lines to which the Quran has laid down very clearly in front of us. What is meant by Marzaat Allah? That is the next slide. Some details have been covered under verses 1, 2, 3 about the correct concept of Allah. This is also discussed in detail in the book titled The Human Self and Allah by G.A. Pervez. It is covered in chapter 3. In the religious domain, the whole emphasis is focused on pleasing Allah or their respective gods via various rituals, and the aim is personal salvation. People can live their lives as they wish within the domain of their unbridled desires, but if they can please a higher deity through the performance of certain ritualized practices, then this provides them with some feelings of self-satisfaction. And such people don't see problems in the world. They don't see yatim and miskin in the world. They don't see any slavery in the world. Being the beneficiary of man-made systems, they are quite happy to follow their religious ritualized beliefs, which have zero impact in the outer world. The meanings of Razi, Yarza, Rizwanan, Rizan are to agree with someone fully through the conviction of the heart, to become harmonious, create compatibility. And this is the root used in Marzaat Allah. In the matter of making a covenant, that is buying and selling, this mutual agreement or mutual harmony becomes manifested as evidence. The Quranic concept of Allah is an objective standard based on certain laws according to which the system of the universe is busy functioning so precisely. There is never any change in these laws. The same kind of laws are also defined for human life. But man is given this choice to either live life according to these laws or, if he so wishes, to go against these. The word of 2026 is based on non-Quranic laws, because this is what human beings have decided to follow, whether knowingly or unknowingly. The point which we should keep in mind is that fire will burn whether we know it will burn or not. Similarly, all those permanent values which are for the development of the human self, if those are not followed, then the self developed under the relative values of the man-made system will never achieve that kind of self-development which we can achieve under the permanent values. It's all about laws. When man lives his life under the obedience of these laws, then it is called Attaba Rizwan Allah, adopting obedience to the laws of Allah. It means that the prosperities associated with these laws are then achieved by him and them, that is Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen as a whole. So this point we should keep in mind, that at present there is no system of deen. So its prosperities and successes we simply cannot understand, but theoretically we can by studying the Quran. So our efforts over here are to go through all the laws and values and principles which are related to the system of deen, and then give these firm place within our cognition. A few more comments. These laws are preserved in the Quran, hence Attaba Rizwan Allah will mean obedience to the Quran. So Marzaat Allah, which is mentioned in this verse, means to follow Allah's laws, to make our life compatible with the laws of Allah. Another point also merits attention. The creation of the universe is a link in the supreme program of Allah. So this is another very important point which we should keep reminding ourselves, that each one of us is part of this program of Allah, and we have understood part of this program of Allah, which is to establish the system of deen, develop ourselves, acquire new life, and then go on to the next life after experiencing death. Other than man, all other things of the universe, after suitable nourishment, become all that which these are destined to become. For example, a lamb will automatically become a sheep. It cannot become anything else. And this is true in the case of all animals. As far as man's physical life is concerned, the human child also acquires a human form, but this form is similar to a human being. In our case as well, at a physical level, we have an animalistic body, a physical body, which also grows from a child and attains adulthood. This animal, which is looking like a human being, does not become human by simply growing up to be like that. It has to become human through its own efforts and the values in which she lives her life. And that is an important point which we should keep in mind and also explain to our children, because children need to be educated on that, because all this is evidence-based fact. He can become human by obeying those laws which Allah has outlined for him. He is given this choice that if he wishes, he can become human from being just a man, or if he wishes, he can remain just a man, i.e., live life like other animals and die like animals. So this is important, that we should recognize two parts of our existence. One is our physical body, which follows physical laws. And for example, if we have a balanced diet, we do exercises, we have good discipline in our life, then we will have a healthier living. Similarly, in the case of our self, if we follow within the relative values of the man-made system, then that self will have all the problems accumulated in its head, in its makeup, which are of man-made system. But if we are dissatisfied with the man-made system and we are seeking guidance for an alternative system, then we come to the Quran and follow its guidance. First, obviously, we will understand these laws and values applicable to human self-development, and then follow these, then come together and then educate, train ourselves for the system of deen. He will only fit into the program of Allah when he becomes human from being just a man. The Quran helps to make him one. So that means we should also understand the program of Allah from the Quran and see that how best we fit into that program. And this is our choice, that how best we fit into it. If we are half-hearted, then obviously we will not be able to draw all those benefits which are associated with that program of Allah, because this program follows laws, and we should always keep in mind that Allah follows his own laws. He doesn't favor anyone. He strictly follows his own laws, and he expects us to follow his laws the way he follows his own laws. In becoming human, there is no benefit to Allah. It is in our own interest to become that. The Quran tells us, قَدْ أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمْ كِتَابًا فِيهِ ذِكْرُكُمْ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. And Quran says that this book has been sent to you in which there is the secret of your own loftiness and eminence. And if you use your intellect, then you will be able to understand it. Let us go to the next verse, 208. Mu'minin asked to enter into Islam completely. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu udkhulu fis silmi kaffatan wa la tattabi'u khutuwati shaitani innahu lakum aduwwum mubin. Hence, O Jamaat Mu'mineen, only adopt this very path, and in this divine system, which is the guarantor of peace and security, fully enter it altogether, that is collectively, and do not halt after treading a few steps. Instead, reach to its ultimate limit. Because if we stop after a few steps and think that, okay, I will get some partial result, this is not the way Allah's laws work. Do not pursue those emotions of the life of an animalistic level, which, if left unbridled, will not permit man to rise to the level of lofty values. This course of action is a visibly severe enemy to man, and Quran has mentioned over here Shaitan, and we have gone through this aspect under Surah Bani Israel. Protect yourself from it. So I've put a reference over here, verses 64 and 65. We can go through this presentation in our own time. Common translation, O ye who believe, enter into Islam wholeheartedly and follow not the footsteps of the evil one, for he is to you an avowed enemy. So it doesn't explain that well as it is noted in these meanings. This translation also falls well short of the true essence and context in which this verse has appeared following the previous four verses. We should go through previous verses a few times to understand the precise perspective. For example, I have put down these commonplace translations, so you can pick up any translation, English translation of the Quran, and go through these verses in forward as well as reverse order, and we will see that after this presentation, these will make far more sense. Next slide is becoming a Muslim is not a part-time commitment. Commencing from verse 177, where we learned the way to acquire birr, i.e. through Iman in Allah, and then despite love for wealth, making it available for fellow human beings. This will lead to establishing the system of salat and zakat, which will make us muttaqeen. And just to remind ourselves, birr means that where we understand all the finer aspects of the system of deen cognitively, that is, our horizon of our intellect expands and it accommodates all aspects, all permanent values and attributes which are required for the system of deen over a period of time, and we become fit for the system of deen. That is, in this verse, for example, it takes us from becoming a mu'min to becoming muttaqi. Then we were asked to establish the system of qasas and of making a will. Next, our attention was drawn to the program of Siyam to help inculcate discipline and steadfastness so that the laws of Allah emerge as supreme in the land. Next, guidelines are outlined for fighting in self-defense in the cause of Allah once enough strength is acquired by the Islamic system. Part of this self-defense is to provide assistance to those who need to be defended against tyranny and slavery in the world. Once the system of deen is fully established, we are asked to organize the program of Hajj to discuss and resolve the issues facing the Ummah and, of course, mankind, and also to apprise mankind about the benefits and advantages associated with the system of Rububiyyat. And the Quran had said in, for example, verse 185, لِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ, to invite the rest of mankind towards the divine system. Analyzing it a bit further, this verse appears after the outline of the system of deen has come before us, and it is stated, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu udkhulu fis silmi kaffatan wa la tattabi'u khutwati shaitani innahu lakum aduwwun mubin. And Quran has said over here that those who have accepted Iman, you should enter Islam completely together. See how those mu'mineen are being reminded as well, because they haven't become muttaqeen yet. And then Quran says, do not follow your base desires. Don't become distracted. Because you are now able to, after coming to the Quran, you can see that your own unbridled desires can cause a lot of harm to yourself. The two words silm and kafatan merit attention. Silm is Islam, about which it has been noted previously that it is the name for a complete system which encompasses the whole of human living. It has been explained under verse 138 of Surah Al-Baqarah that the whole character or personality of man should be colored in the divine attributes. We can go through this presentation as well in our own time. The root of kafatin is this, whose basic meanings are to reach the final limit of some matter, not stopping after walking a bit. Very important. Ensuring to reach its completion. Even under the man-made system, if we have taken a project in hand, we can't stop on the way, because then the project will not be completed. And for example, if we relate it to our children, if we have brought those children into this life, then it is our responsibility not to stop supporting them in terms of their education, training, and of course providing them good awareness of the system of deen from the Quran. And this is to our own advantage, because if what we sow, so shall we reap. So if we invest in them in an earlier part of their life, there will be a blessing for us in the later part of life, and of course in the life of the hereafter as well. The whole of it, a collective, a congregation. Some of these things we need to keep reminding ourselves, because it is not possible on this platform to go through these things in every session. And that is why it is helpful we go back to previous presentations and also recommend these to our children, because these are in English, and those who understand English, particularly in the West, they can benefit a lot from them. The foundation of Iman is on psychological transformation, and the meaning of this change is that there is a change in the heart. Man should become a new creation, and this is given in verse 14 of chapter 23, Khalqan Akhara. We can look at that verse few times in our own time. This change is not piecemeal, but is in totality. He becomes a new person in terms of character and conduct. And we can see those of us who have attended these sessions regularly, they will see that there is a significant change within their own understanding as well. The character cannot be evaluated in parts. It appears in man as a whole. This is called kafatan. Next slide is further elaboration of kafatan. The meaning of kafatan is also that Islam is not an individual pursuit as under religion. That is, there is no question of personal salvation. It is a collective deen. But one point is clear, that once we start working collectively towards the system of deen, our self reaches that stage where it gets the assurance of the hereafter. It grows beyond that fear of the hereafter. It has been explained under verse 43 of Surah Al-Baqarah. The Muslim Ummah is shaped according to this system. Kafatan also means that this system cannot be fragmented into pieces. It will be accepted and adopted as a whole, and if to be rejected, then it will be in totality. Islam ceases to exist if grafting is done in it. When grafting commenced in it, then gradually nothing remained of the original Islam. If the existing Islam is to be converted into the real Islam that is based on the pure Quran, then this grafted one will need to be discarded. This is why the Quran has declared, فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ. This change will come gradually, but it will be in totality. And we can relate to many examples from the man-made system as well. In whichever land the man-made laws are followed and obeyed very strictly, we will see that over there the police and their law enforcing agencies will not accept any transgression of that. The modus operandi will be that man should keep its own emotions confined within the shores of Allah's limits and employ these in obedience to the permanent values and the divine attributes. This will lead to that change which will bring about a transformation of the heart. And this transformation is recognizable. It is very tangible. It translates our thoughts into deeds in the outer world. Why should we accept this invitation of Allah? And that question can arise in our mind. If not, then this will continue. And we know about the genocide in Gaza, and we know that what is happening across the world as well. Recent destruction in Lebanon. I haven't put down any picture from Ukraine, but we should keep in mind that wherever there is a destruction of human life and their properties, it will fall under this. And this is because there is no Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen in the world. And there is a lot said about poverty as well. If we look at this slide, there is a lot written over there. For example, garbage, unemployed, homelessness, cardboard life, unhappy, despair, isolated. So it is covering both physical as well as intellectual side of people who suffer because of this poverty. And of course, poverty alleviation as well. We can look through some of these aspects over there. There's a lot, and we can see that in our own time. We can Google it as well. Fighting global poverty with ideas. I like this slide because there is a man sitting here and giving lectures to these children about poverty elimination. And we know that these children are going to become human beings one day, and then they will know the reality of their own existence in a man-made world. And here is the cause of all these problems. 5 pillars of Islam, which does not include the Quran. Declaration of faith, obligatory prayer, keep praying day and night. compulsory giving of this 2.5% zakat. Quran said beyond your need once the system is established. Fasting in the month of Ramadan, yes, go without water and food and see the state of the world they have. There was even wars during the month of Ramadan. Pilgrimage to Mecca, and we have gone through Hajj and its significance, and we can look at the state of Hajj as of today. We go to the next verse, 209, after becoming exposed to the light of the Quran. وَإِن زَلَلْتُم مِّن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْكُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتُ فَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ. We have presented the principles and laws perspicuously in front of you. If after this your footsteps slip, then do not assume that there will be none to hold you to account. Our law of requital is the possessor of great powers. It ensures that it overpowers everyone. And it should not create fear in the hearts of mu'mineen, because the law of requital is working in their favor. Allah is their companion. Allah wants them to succeed. They are fitting into the program of Allah. So over here, Quran is providing a lot of strength to mu'mineen, and at the same time telling them that do not become distracted. But its overpowering is not the manifestation of blind powers. It is according to procedure and law and hikmat and vision. So Aziz and Hakim is mentioned over here. Commonplace translation is, if you backslide after the clear signs have come to you, then know that Allah is exalted in power wise. Note, in this translation, there is no coherence between the two parts of it. From this translation, it is very difficult to see that how these two are connected. One is as if Allah is praising himself. The first one is that, okay, if you backslide, that is fine. We go to the next slide, a few comments about the rise and fall of nations. The verse ends with, Anna Allaha Azizun Hakim. When power and hikmat and reason become amalgamated, then this is termed as the law. Very important statement, that power and hikmat, when it combines, then it becomes the law. If power is devoid of reason, then it becomes deception. And if reason is not supported by power, then it becomes a sermon or philosophy. And there is a plenty of sermons and philosophy being expressed under the religious domains. Secondly, when a nation becomes obedient to a correct system, it does not mean that after that it can do whatever comes to its mind, and it will continue to benefit from its prosperous outcomes. Not at all. It will have to continue striving for the strengthening of the system. So partial acceptance of Islam or treading on this path for a few years, then going away, is all waste of effort, and these will never ever lead to the system of deen. That is why under sectarian Islam, deen of the Quran simply cannot emerge. In this regard, the Quran has declared, Inna allazina qalu rabbuna Allahu summa istaqamu tatanazzalu alayhimul malaikatu. And we can look at the rest of the verse in our own time. In this, the condition of steadfastness is added to the statement of Iman by saying, Qalu rabbuna Allahu. Those who say that our Rabb is Allah. In steadfastness is the name for continuity of struggle. Any severance in it and the roadmap of this system will become disfigured, and that nation becomes deprived of human eminence and loftiness. It should also be borne in mind that under the law of the rise and fall of nations, nations do not disappear totally from the face of the earth. Sometimes people think that as if the whole nation will disappear and a flood will come and an earthquake will come and this nation will be destroyed. This is not the way these things work. That is the law of requital. It means that it becomes deprived of those prosperities of life which are associated with the system of deen. If at any future time it decides to return to the book of Allah, it will again find all those successes and prosperities which it lost by treading on the wrong path. And this is called the act of Tawbah. That is, we go back to the place from where we took the wrong turn in life. We go to the last verse of today's presentation, that is verse 210. All events in the human world can be evaluated using the Quranic value system. Hal yanziruna illa an أن يأتيهم الله في ظلال من الغمام والملائكة وقضي الأمر وإلى الله ترجع الأمور. I've highlighted particularly this وإلى الله ترجع الأمور to say that every event in our life can be analyzed under the laws of Allah. These opponents of yours still remain intoxicated in those assumptions which their superstitions have created. For example, that for the destruction of nations, Allah Himself appears in the company of Malaika riding on a chariot of clouds, and this is how the final decision is made. And under religious belief system, these kind of beliefs do exist. Say to them that the destruction and ruin of nations does not occur like this. It occurs according to the established law of Allah. And that law is that every single one of your deeds takes you step by step towards the law of requital of Allah. You cannot escape anywhere outside of its grip. Destruction and ruin manifest in this way. Because in the human deeds, the outcomes and the consequences are hidden within them. It is only that these appear after a certain period of time called the time of respite. Commonplace translation of this verse is, will they wait until Allah comes to them in canopies of clouds with angels in His train, and the question is thus settled. But to Allah do all questions go back for decision. And to Allah will go back, that is to His book, all decisions will go back under the system of Deen. And with that, we come to the end of this presentation. Thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of Deen.